Dark destinations.
These may be end times, night creature. Why would a few more casualties trouble me?
Because their blood will join yours.
A radio drama anthology.
You are wrong.
How you figure? Every merc on Mongo is hunting you down.
Not you. Your partner. He said I didn't have a ray gun.
Full cast performances set in the haunted corners of the globe.
Darkness is coming for you.
That's the fear that haunts me. Sleep!
Dark Destinations by Father Malone at weirdingwaymedia.com.
Weirding Way Media.
Welcome back to Midnight Viewing, the horror anthology podcast, where this season we're taking a look at George A. Romero's 1980s series, Tales from the Darkside. I'm Father Malone, and sharing the Midnight View with me are the Culture Cast's Chris Stashew.
I hope that I never go to New York City, because if I do and I hear a phone ring, that can only mean one thing. It's trying to murder me.
And joining us is the Projection Booth's Mike White.
Snip Snip.
Woo! Okay, so, like he said, Snip Snip, Season 1, Episode 14. This one originally aired on February the 10th, 1985, written by Tom Allen and Howard Smith, story by Smith, and directed by Terrence Cahalan. I keep thinking it's Callahan, but it's not, it's Cahalan. This one stars Carol Kane and Bud Cort. It's about an algebra teacher with a penchant for the occult, tries to win the lottery, or at least prevent the winner from collecting. What'd you think about this one, Mike?
Well, I love the actors. Really love the actors in this one. I was so excited because I knew Bud Cort was in it because I saw the little image on IMDb. I try not to read about these before I watch them. So when Carol Kane showed up, I was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. Yeah, that was all right. Prize other witches are always interesting, I guess. I don't. At the same time,
Just the way you said surprise witches.
Surprise witches.
No
Surprise
one ever
witches.
expects witches. What?
It's like when we talked the last time about the psychics and stuff, I was kind of hoping that it'd be like, I wanted the psychics to fight each other in a psychic battle. Here we have witches, I guess, fighting each other. And I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, I don't know.
Mike,
it felt
program a month of the Projection Booth for surprise witches. That's a great category.
Surprise witches. Yeah, I felt like it needed a little jump at some point, but yeah, I thought it was okay. What did you think, Chris?
I was holding myself back from laughing when you were like, I was hoping that there would be dueling psychics in the last episode that we did. Cause I was like, yeah, because when we get it, it's so entertaining. I mean, it's fine. I think to your point, Mike, Bud Cort's great. Carol Kane is great. Not a lot going on here. It kind of reminds me in a way of In the Cards, where it's like, and to what end? What's the gag? If the gag is the final shot of the episode, and that's what they were getting to, which ostensibly it is. Okay, what am I supposed to take away from how the episode ends, and how am I supposed to use that to interpret what I saw up until that point? I'm not sure, because to Mike's point, it reminded me a lot of that. I think it was like the first episode of this show where it's like he opens the door and there's kids trick-or-treating. Then he opens the door again. That was the first time of surprise witches on this show, apparently, because there's just a witch on a broom flying in front of him. That's what it reminded me of. I was like, what? Okay. Because I guess this is the universe where this guy could be in the dark arts. I guess Carol Kane as a barber could also be a witch. Sure. I don't know the rules here. You got me.
I enjoyed the episode for the acting. It is muddled at best and weird at the end. Carol Kane seems to live in a beautiful 2-story loft / balloon factory. Why are there so fucking
the
balloons?
Thank you.
It's a bit much. Bud Cort. Bud Cort. Harold. This is the weird period between where he looked super young and super old. This is kind of like his awkward teenage years. My girlfriend was startled when I pointed out that it was Harold. She said the whole time she thought it was a woman in drag.
Really?
Yeah. He does have feminine features.
He does, yeah.
Speaking of Bud Cort, great spit take in this episode. You never see a spit take that looks genuine, but when he says he's talking to his boss, he's quitting, and he's taking a big gulp of alcohol, and he spits it out and says, "No, I'm not drinking." Although making his boss listen to him while he performs the incantation, it was a weird move. No weirder than the incantation itself. All hail all on-set practical effects in this episode. It was so simple, just a piece of paper on a string. But man, oh man, it worked, particularly because Bud Cort plucks it out of the air while he's having the conversation with him. I loved that. Weird. Okay, here's my logical problem with the episode. Why would they announce the name of the winner?
Right?
Well,
right?
You don't call up and quit before the numbers are read off either. I mean, this guy deserved everything he gets.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Have the next job lined up before you quit the first one. Like, make sure that those millions are yours. Like, no matter what your spirit guide has told you. But he finds her only because they name her. Like, why would the lottery announce the name of the winner? Everyone go to this hurt human's house. They're going to have millions of dollars soon. I don't know. That just seemed like a lame plot thing that they just sort of threw out there so he could find her really quickly. And convenience does not equal economy. Usually the show is very good with how economical its scripts are, like getting us from point A to B to C. Speaking of convenience, if something is going on in the background of a shot and the foreground players can't see it, or they shouldn't be able to see it and somehow don't, it never works. There's a scene where Carol Kane is talking to a client of hers while Bud Cort has climbed up on some fucking rickety ladder that looks like he got it from our gang. And he's like stumbling around and they're not supposed to see him. The idea is that their heads aren't turned in his direction so they can't see him, but peripheral vision would say they could see him. It was just so...
Well, the one guy could see him. The one guy was literally staring at him, more or less. Like, that guy's just blind, apparently.
Like, I know they were just going for like a comedy bit, but it was so weirdly like staged. Speaking of weirdly staged, at the end when the secret witch is revealed to be Carol Kane, they do this thing where they do this reverse shot of her jumping up onto the thing. It was clearly like she had jumped off of it. And,
and
it was like she could have just jumped up there. Like it wasn't some magical feat she performed. She jumped from one level to another. It was so weird.
I do like the 1980. You like this episode?
Yeah.
That's fair. I was going to say, I do like that Matt Dillon gets a name drop randomly. She's like, the one that looked like Matt Dillon? Matt Dillon?
Oh, yeah.
Matt Dillon of 85, Matt Dillon 80.
Very
okay.
big. He was in the big town.
I guess so. I mean, it's just weird. She was like, remember that record store guy? Oh, can we talk about talking birds, please? Just for a moment. Just for a moment, please. By the way, not disparaging Matt Dillon. Matt Dillon's a good-looking guy. He's just no Charles, but he's just no Charles Bukowski. Okay, you can't convince me of that. No matter how hard you try.
He's no Julio Iglesias either.
What in God's name is up with birds in movies? Talking birds, like that. This never works. It's just so hokey. Right?
All voiced by Frank Welker, by the way.
Oh,
of course,
yeah. Sitting on
Megatron himself.
His golden toilet, yeah.
Noises provided by Frank Welker. Life must be hard for Mr. Welker at this point. I just don't, I don't know. A lot of this is contrived. Also, I don't know, maybe bird lovers out there, correct me if I'm wrong. Do you just walk around your house talking to your bird all the time?
I would.
If they could talk back.
But
I talk to my dog all the time. She's not saying shit.
That's fair. But I guess, is she expecting the bird to reply?
Well, clearly, because her bird is named Lucifer, and it might be some fucking familiar. I mean, he's way ahead of the occult game here.
Lou the bird. Lou, short for Lucifer. Get it? The devil? Oh.
He is Dr. Acula.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wait,
Lou,
I can't. I don't like
last name's Cypher. Lou Cypher. I know this guy. He was eating eggs.
He's an egg eater, that fella.
He's an egg eater with long fingernails.
Look out, Mickey Rourke. Oh my God, where have we gone? We're no longer talking about this episode at all, but it's probably because it's not very good. I liked it.
It's funny, but again, I don't know. I'm not saying that these shows being anthology shows, I'm not saying that they can't be funny, but
Right.
like sustained hilarity is not a thing that these are promising. And when some of these episodes kind of go out of their way to be comedic throughout, it doesn't really work. And the only show it kind of worked on was Tales from the Crypt. And that's because of the ham that is the Crypt Keeper being kind of the tone setter of the show. This show is, there is another side. Like, that's not funny at all. What the fucking laughter? I mean, it's darkly comic, but it's not the Crypt Keeper laughing, talking about, you know, whatever stupid goddamn pun he trots out for this episode. That's my issue with these horror anthology shows is I get that they're trying to give us like a release valve of an episode with some comedy, but they rarely are successful in long form. That's why the Blackout sketches that's why we keep mentioning it. They really only work in short form because it is like a New Yorker cartoon. Like it doesn't need to be any more than that.
I wish in cases like this, when they are going to take a pause and give us a breather with a comedy episode, that in this case, they would hand the script to literally everyone in the office and say, is this funny?
Right.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Because it's not enough for the guy who wrote and directing it. I mean, look, you know you're going to have Carol Kane and Bud Cort, so you know they're going to be funny. That is like a safety net for people. But you can't rely on them to fix all the fucking plot holes.
No. Yeah, it's always struck me as weird when these kind of shows try to be funny because we've really only seen comedy work, I would say, on Twilight Zone 85. There were some actually funny episodes of Twilight Zone 85. Even the Tales from the Crypt episodes that were trying to be more comedic than anything else didn't really work. I mean, some episodes tried to go full on comedy, like the Harry Dean Anderson one. And oh my God, like, please hold me back from not wanting to remember that. And this show hasn't been successful with comedy really either. Not in this format, not in the extended entire episode is comedic.
Anthologies have a comedic problem, let's face it.
Well, if they're trying to be a horror show and they're trying to do this, horror and comedy are hard to do anyways. Writing comedy is I find it to be the hardest thing to do. Making someone else laugh is not easy.
I will say in the previous episode where we had the Cannibal family and anniversary dinner, when I went back and watched it again, now knowing what I know, all of their lines made me laugh.
Right. Right. Because it recontextualized the whole thing.
It was all pointed. And because they knew that they were doing this dark thing and they were underplaying everything. Whenever they know it's a comedy and they're feeding us a comedy, it's just like, okay, we're waiting for something to be funny and it never is.
There was a giant spoon on the wall of that house and she didn't say a word.
That's funny.
I mean, that's my point. That is funny. What's that giant spoon for? Oh, nothing. You wouldn't understand.
Attention, eat your lettuce. This is rabbit food. All right. Our next episode is entitled Answer Me. This is season 1, episode 15. It aired originally on February the 17th, 1985. This one was written by Michael McDowell from a story by Michael McDowell and Dennis Schutz and directed by Richard Friedman. This one stars Jean Marsh. That's it. An English actress must contend not only with New York City, but that goddamn ringing telephone in the apartment next door. What'd you think of this one, Chris?
Yeah, it was written by Michael McDowell, which was probably the most shocking part of this entire episode. Because for those of you listening that may not know, and I don't want to come off as an intellectual bully like some people do, Michael, not you guys, but other people when they speak down to us, Malcolm McDowell is a different story. Michael McDowell wrote Beetlejuice, which is one of the great, I would say, comedy horror movies of all time. Go back to the idea of what is this show trying to be? I don't know what in God's name this episode's trying to do, other than make me never want to hear the sound of a landline ringing in the 80s ever again, because, God, that sound effect gets overused here. Oh, it's annoying for the character. It's annoying for the audience. Anyone ever think that might be the case in the editing bay when they were putting those in? I don't get it. She just gets killed by the phone at the end. Like, what the fuck is going on? And then at one point there may have been either in somehow the future is being told that she's going to die or someone else also died. It's not really made clear because they say a British woman died in the room next to him, strangled herself to death, and then she does the same thing. Are they talking about her? Mike,
I think they are.
Please tell me. Are they? Okay.
I feel like they are talking about her. I feel like somehow there's almost like a time loop going on. Like after her death, then she'll show up again in the next room and it'll just repeat and repeat and repeat. Yeah, I was surprised that my wife didn't throw a fit when we were watching this because of that phone noise. Like we went to see Once Upon a Time in America, and I don't know if you guys remember, but there's famously a ringing phone in that kind of triggers memories. And it's Robert De Niro at this opium den, and he just keeps hearing this ringing phone and ringing phone. Then it finally like takes him back into the old narrative, and it's all this whole flashback thing. I thought for sure she lost her mind when we saw Once Upon a Time in America. She was just like, God damn it, if they don't answer that phone. I was shocked that she didn't say something about this one as we were watching it last week. And yeah, that sound effect gets pretty wild. And then to find out that the phone and it has a mind of its own and that it's throwing itself against the wall and the door. I'm like, what happens if this phone gets out of the room? This phone could take over New York City.
The phone that ate Manhattan.
Full disclosure on this one. I saw this as a kid, and it freaked me the fuck out. What looks silly to me now in daylight hours as a 50-year-old human being can't account for how startling this was to 13-year-old me. This is an East Coast episode. Midnight viewing guests Draper and Wolf participated in it. The problem here is obviously the writing. I love Michael McDowell, but his instinct is to fill a script with dialogue. It seems insane not to, just looking at the page. Yet this episode, for all intents and purposes, should have been The Invaders, like the original Twilight Zone episode, where Agnes Moorehead is menaced by tiny aliens, or Trilogy of Terror. It should have had no dialogue. The story doesn't require any dialogue. It should have, and it definitely doesn't need an actress of Jean Marsh's capabilities. She's very adept and witty as an actress, and here she's like a one-woman show who, whenever a character is speaking to themselves as much as they are here, it just drives me crazy. Just take out all of it. If there had been no dialogue at all that first night when she's just being frustrated by the phone, the next morning when she's talking to herself, when she's pretending she's a casting agent, like looking at her two headshots and saying, oh, I could do this or that. And then when the phone rings and she explodes, it would feel more natural in a way. Sign, this is 1984. Those goddamn tinfoil Hungry Man TV dinners. Jesus Christ. Oh. Anytime you needed to quickly convey just how pathetic a character's life is in a TV show, TV dinner time. Also, do you remember the ZZ Top video for TV dinners?
Oh, of course, with that little monster that comes out, all claymated.
Oh,
yeah.
Freaky little gremlin. Jesus Christ, that was actually scarier than this episode, that video for ZZ Top. My favorite part of this episode, I do like it overall. My favorite part is that when she goes in and answers the phone, it's her talk, it's her voice, and she doesn't realize. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really scary. And the phone is basically saying, this is it. Like, don't come back in here. And then she goes back in there, man. I don't know. I enjoyed it. I don't know that there's a moral here. Again, we talked about a little bit about this. Like, this is just a woman rents an apartment. She picked the wrong coast, man. She didn't want to go to LA. She should have gone to LA. She wanted to start her acting career in New York. And this, here's the thing about Michael McDowell. I found this out. The impetus for Beetlejuice was that he had neighbors move in and he fucking hated it. And he wanted rid of them and thought, how could I do that? And then a bioexorcist occurred to him. And he just seems a very deeply misanthropic human being overall.
I completely agree. Like I mentioned, on the last episode, like the show is all of a sudden really mean. Like, why not just make these people deserve it? Like, I don't get why this woman is murdered by a telephone. If it's not just to be like, she just gets murdered by a telephone. If that's the answer, then okay, got it. Understood. But it's told in such a way that it's not really even that interesting. It's this idea of we're going to do the same thing 8 times. And yeah, the ringing of the phone is one thing, but the repeating of all of this over and over again, it's like there's no, you would have gone over night 1. It wouldn't have taken to night 3. And like you mentioned, Father Malone, if you did hear your voice on the other end of the line, the last thing you're doing is going back over there. Unless, again, you're just an idiot character who dies, which is exactly what happened to the woman who gets cooked in the bathtub, but in the hot tub. Same thing that happens to the tarot card character. It's not Bud Cort a little bit, but not, he's turd anyways. These 3 characters are just like seemingly just wrong place, wrong time.
And not adapting to their situation. Here's the thing. If you or I or you, we had an apartment and next door the phone was constantly ringing, and then one day you went over there and the door was open and you went in and that phone rang, do you know what I would do? I'd rip the fucking phone out of the wall. I don't give a shit who's calling. I'm not going to call the phone company and say, hey, can you please turn off this number? The phone is going out of the window.
Right. Or what I would have done, just fucking go find another hotel to stay at.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, she's staying at a friend's apartment, I think.
Right. She's subletting.
Yeah. So she has no money.
Well, now she doesn't have a life.
That's true. Watch out for those landlines.
Yeah, they'll jump out of the wall and get you.
Well, either that or your answering machine will kill you.
Right.
Yeah, real technophobic here on the Tales from the Dark Side. Like, that's how our inanimate objects are coming for us. We've imbued them with too much life.
Feels very Columbo-y. Columbo is the same way, like relying on answering machines are crazy, landlines and cell phones. How are you calling me?
Columbo always learns how those things work, though, and then uses them against the criminals.
Correct.
If only she was able to use the powers of the phone to defeat whatever phone demon was coming after her.
Now, just one more thing. Careful, your cell phone's going to try to kill you.
I will say this about Tales from the Dark Side, though. At least they're examining what's going on around them. At no point do I feel like this is an episode that could have taken place in 1940 or is from the 1940s, which was often times on Night Gallery. It would be like, what does this have to do with anything? This is 1970 and we're getting a tale from what feels like 52 or something.
Well, I mean, I'm just waiting for them to start singing for He's a Jolly Good Fellow on this show.
Lord.
If it happens, I'll eat my hat.
I want it to happen so badly just because I want the 3 of us to all have the same reaction, which is, God in heaven, why? It haunts us still.
On the next episode of Midnight Viewing, we'll be taking a look at 2 episodes from season 1. Those are The Tear Collector with Jessica Harper. Everybody, tune into that, Jessica Harper, y'all. And The Madness Room. Until next time, what are you working on? Where can people find it, Chris Stashu?
You can find everything that I work on over at weirdingwaymedia.com, which is where all the podcasts that I have been working on for the last decade now can be found, aside from one thing, which can be found on mine or Mike White's Patreon, which is Rankin' on Bond, which is a monthly Patreon exclusive show where Mike and I, along with our friend Richard Haddam of Richard Haddam's Paranormal Bookshelf, sit down and talk about James Bond once a month. If that's the thing you're into, which if you're listening to this, you may like the sounds of our voice or our opinions, go check that out. What about you, Mike? Where can people find what you do?
Well, everything that I do is also in the same place, also with the exception of that Rankin' on Bond show. So weirdingwaymedia.com, that's the place that you want to be. How about you, Father Malone?
I think I should have access to this James Bond show.
Well, if you give us some money.
Give us some money. Yeah, you know how much, you heard us say it's $10. Come on.
Yeah, all right. As for me, what they said for my audio content, but you're welcome to check out my other forays into media over at fathermalone.com. Thank you all for joining us here at Midnight Viewing. Until next time, try to enjoy the daylight. Midnight Viewing, the horror anthology podcast, is a proud member of Weirding Way Media. Our theme song was composed by HP with an assist from Donald Rubenstein and Erica Lindsay. If you want to hear these episodes early and commercial-free, become a patron over at patreon.com/FatherMalone. Not only are the episodes up early, but we have extended interviews and bonus podcasts where we spotlight the best episodes of horror anthologies from every series. But if you just like the show and want to help, please share it with your friends and give us a rating on your favorite podcatcher. Together we'll keep journeying through the places that are just as real, but not as brightly lit.